أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I welcome you all for this Madrasa course, Book 4, Chapter 4. And the topic today we are going to study is Suratul Fatiha. We all know that Surah Al-Fatiha is a very important surah for all of us, and we use that in Salah, and it's very important for the Salah because without reciting Surah Al-Fatiha, the Salah is invalid. So it's very important to memorize Surah Al-Fatiha and also to learn what Surah Al-Fatiha is explaining to us, to know the meaning of Surah Al-Fatiha, to remember what these ayat mean. So let's begin. Surah Al-Fatiha, the opening. By the way, Fatiha comes from the root word fatah, fataha, that means to open. So our Quran begins with Surah Al-Fatiha, and that is why this is called as the opening surah. It was revealed in Makkah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين Ameen. So the translation of the meaning of the surah. In the name of Allah, the most kind, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, the most kind, the most merciful. Master of the day of judgment, you alone we worship, and to you alone we turn for help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those on whom you have bestowed your grace, not of those who earned your anger, nor of those who have gone astray. So there is explanation of each ayah of Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha consists of 7 ayah, and it begins with the ayah Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The ayah occurs in the Quran before every surah except Surah Al-Tawbah. That is the Surah 9 in the Quran. This ayah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, has 2 of the most beautiful names of Allah, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. We studied in our last chapter, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, both of which tell us about the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we also differentiated between these 2 words. Both these names of Allah show how kind, merciful, and caring He is. The word Allah in Bismillah, here you can see it is Allah along with Bismi. This has the meaning in the name of Allah. So this is a very personal name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is Allah. The word hamd means praise and thankfulness. Alhamd means pure praise of Allah. It also includes praise for the gifts and blessings He has given us. And finally, it expresses thankfulness for all the good which comes from Him and all the favors we receive from Him. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed us with lots and lots of favors. He has bestowed us with Islam. He has given us many gifts and many blessings in the form of home, in the form of food, in the form of clothing, and very importantly, has blessed us with good parents and our many other relatives, friends, and there are innumerable blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We start the day, for example, by saying, Praise be to Allah who has brought us to life after causing us to die. That is the dua after we wake up. That is the dua after we wake up. What is the dua after waking up from sleep? Alhamdulillah alladhi ahyana ba'dama amatana wa ilayhin nushur. So this is the dua, and it exactly means praise be to Allah who has brought us to life after causing us to die. So sleep is actually uh, um, a small form of death. Sleep is like death, where we are going to wake up only with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to Him is the resurrection. So that is the complete meaning of that dua. So whenever we wake up, let us practice waking up with this dua. So Allah alone is the one who deserves to be praised and to whom we should be grateful. So this dua teaches us to always begin our day with praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim and Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Rabbil Alameen is the Lord of all the words. Rabb is Lord. Alameen is all the words. That means that He is the master of every single aspect of life of this world and the afterlife, of everything seen and unseen. He is the creator, He is the master, and he is the controller, He is the sustainer of the Lord, of the all the worlds. A world, that means alam in Arabic, is something other than Allah. And everything other than Allah is completely subject to Him and in need of Him. So everything apart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that creation needs Him in whatever it does. So everything other than Allah is His slave and the result of His blessing. So that is the meaning of alam, a world that is everything other than Allah can be counted as alam. The most kind, the most merciful, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. We live in Allah's mercy. His mercy, knowledge, and forgiveness encompass everything in existence. Maliki Yawmiddin, Master of the Day of Judgment. Allah is the Master both in this life and on the Day of Judgment. On that day, we alone will be the Master. He alone will be the Master, and no one will be allowed to speak without His permission. On that day, those who do right actions will be rewarded, and those who do wrong actions will be punished. The belief of accountability in the Akhirah is the central part of Iman. This gives courage and support to the believers. They suffer untold miseries and injustices in this life and remain steadfast. So, how is it a support to the believers? Because they believe in the day of judgment, they believe that right actions will be rewarded, and those who do wrong, even if they are not punished in this world, they will be held accountable and they will be punished in the Akhirah. So, this is a great support to all the believers. They do not deviate from the path of doing well. They always remain hopeful of receiving their reward in the afterlife. Besides, it is a warning for the wrongdoers that Allah is well aware of their misdeeds. They may escape justice in this world, but they will not escape the punishment they deserve on that day. Allah will reward those who have Iman and do right actions with Jannah, and will punish the wrongdoers, with Jahannam, that is the hellfire, Nar. Then we have, you alone we worship and you alone we turn for help. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. You alone we worship, and to you alone we turn for help. O Allah, we worship you alone. We seek your help. We do not seek the help of anyone else. Everything other than you is in need of you. Of course, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who we worship, but again, we are declaring here and we are asking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us steadfast as well. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. These are the next two ayat. Explanation of the last two ayat begin here. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those on whom you have bestowed your grace. So this is what is the meaning of the ayat. This is the translation of the ayat, and this means a straight path. We are asking for guidance on that straight path. What is that straight path? The straight path on which the prophets walked on which the righteous people walked on, which would lead us to Jannah, which would lead us to righteousness. So that is the straight path we are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. A straight line is the shortest path between 2 points. We all know this. And a crooked line, a curved line will take really long for us to reach to the other part. So a straight line is the shortest path between 2 points. And all the prophets Allah sent to their people called to the straight path of Allah. And yes, the crooked path is always supposed to be a path of deviation. So its foundation is, what is the foundation of the straight path? There is only one God, and all the dwellers of this earth and heaven are in need of Him. La ilaha illallah, that is the straight path of Allah. And we all are subject to His judgment and the command in this world and the next. And so they should worship Him alone. So we should always believe that the straight path is La ilaha illallah, and it is with Allah's command that the heavens and the earth run, and that is why we should be worshipping Him alone. He is our creator, and all the dwellers of this earth and the heaven are in need of Him. And then there is continuation. Those on whom Allah bestowed His grace. Who are the people that Allah has bestowed His grace? Lots of blessings. According to the Quran, they are the prophets, the truthful, the martyrs, and the righteous. The prophets, the messengers, we all know they are very truthful, and there are martyrs also who have been bestowed Allah's grace. And then there are the righteous people. Once the Prophet ﷺ explained the straight path by drawing a straight line in the sand, and then on each side of the line, he drew some crooked lines, saying, "The straight line is the way of Allah, and the crooked lines are the pathways, and on each of them there is a devil inviting people to it." So we have a straight line. That straight line is always the path to Allah. Then we have the crooked lines, which are the pathways where there is devil and he's inviting people. The devil is inviting people for what? For evil deeds. So it is always recommended, it is always from an advice from Allah, from the Prophet of Allah, to be on the straight line. This is why Muslims are instructed to pray for guidance and remain constant on the straight path. It is very important that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance, because He is the one who guides people. He is the one who can control the people's hearts, and He can guide them to righteousness. Allah has made it obligatory to recite the surah in every prayer. And I'm repeating here that if a prayer is without the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha, then it becomes invalid. In fact, it contains great truths, and it is the earnest supplication of a slave seeking the pleasure of his Lord. So yes, it has many things that enlighten us. It helps us to remember the day of judgment. It helps us to remember and ask only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance and for whatever we need. It also helps us to remain on the steadfast path, righteous path, and it also helps us to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as being the most merciful and the most compassionate, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. Continuing, not of those who earned your anger, nor of those who have gone astray. So we know the people who were on the straight path. Those were the prophets, those were the truthful, the martyrs, the righteous people. So we want to stay on that path, and we are also asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from the path where people have walked and gained His anger, where people have walked and gone astray, they have lost their way. We repeat the surah in our lives in the same way that we bathe and wash ourselves. We never stop to do so. Is it enough to wash the human body once or twice in a lifetime? Of course not. The washing must be repeated continually. It is the same with the repetition of Al-Fatiha. Human nature will not be perfected by one or two prayers. It is necessary to stand in the presence of our Lord time and again. The heedlessness of the self and the whisperings of Satan never stop. So the prayer must be repeated continually. So here is the answer why we should be praying 5 times a day. The whisperings of the Satan never stop, and it is for our own good that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it compulsory on us to pray 5 times a day. Okay, so that ends the explanation of the chapter, and we are beginning with the exercises. answer the following questions. Write 3 meanings of hamd. Hamd is praise, it is thankfulness, it is the pure praise that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deserves. Second one, we say Bismillah before we take up any task. Explain from the lesson the reason for this. We all know that Bismillah, the term Bismillah means in the name of Allah. So when we are doing any task, whether it is our homework, whether we are reciting the Quran, whether we are doing, your parents are cooking or doing anything else, we always begin our work or our task with Bismillah. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should help us in doing the task to perfection. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can send blessings, yes, will send blessings and help us in doing that task. With a colored pencil, circle those whom Allah has favored. Well, we should always be knowing this, whom Allah will be favoring, so that we also be like them. Those are the, let me use pencil. Yes, those are the truthful, those are the righteous, those are the prophets and the martyrs. So these are those people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored. Going ahead. Activity. Belief in the day of judgment makes us do good actions even though we may get laughed at. Write an incident when you did something for Allah's pleasure even though others laughed at you. So yes, you can recall such incident and always thank Allah for that moment where this incident happened, because you will be, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be rewarded immensely for that moment that you bared. Okay, so that's the end of class today. Jazakallah khair. Hope it was helpful. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.